this seminar. And I'm very pleased to introduce Mr. Kung-Yueh, who is the Executive Director of the International Climate Development Institute, ICDI. And Professor Zhao will talk to us about several projects that ICDI develops to cope with the climate risk and the sustainable development. 那我也用中文讲一遍就是今天因为简老师比较晚来，所以我今天来代替他介绍这个 seminar。那我们今天很高兴，就是这个 seminar 是有邀请到这个国际气候发展智库 ICDI 的执行长赵国岳先生来跟我们介绍这个智库他过去所发展的一些对应气候风险。这个去发展方面的计划。好，那我接下来就把时间交给赵老师。那this is your year
So before I start my presentation, I would like to know the background of our audience. Okay, I just know Professor Xiao. Yeah, he is not only bilingual but also cross-sectional, co-principal researcher. And what's your background in your college? Could you just very briefly let me know, like politics or social science or something like that?
Social science.
Social science? What's your name?
Sophia.
Sophia? Okay, social science. And you?
My name is Mariana and I do power restoration, so more science and ecology.
Science and ecology? Okay, and you?
I'm Dan. I study political science of the
Okay, great. And you?
I'm Sun, ecology.
And evolution.
I'm Shopper and I do life science of disorders.
Okay, life science. Okay. And yeah.
I'm 18 and I do animal behavior.
Animal behavior. Okay.
I'm Yuli, and I'm working in Tetra Pak, and my background is environmental engineering and education, and my work is in charge of sustainability department in Camyale. My name is Ray. I'm from Vietnam.
Okay. Now what's your background?
My background is intellectual property. Yes, I work with the states.
Okay. That's very important. Yeah. So you do some big data?
My name is Sharon Xu, and my background is hydrology and also information adaptation.
Okay.
My name is Steven, and my background is social science.
Social science.
My name is Lois. I was studying environmental engineering, but now I'm studying early learning.
My name is Kung-Yueh, and my background is atmospheric science.
Okay. Ecologist.
My name is Wu Dai, and I was majoring in zoology, ecology, and right now I'm doing something related to environmental management and focus on marine protected area.
Okay.
My name is Ishan, and here's my background in Expo. My background is actually from development geography and international relations. My research topics focus on Taiwan's transitional ODA policy and NGO engagement in international development.
Okay. Okay, very good. So I know that the audience background are like very multilateral, and also for my background, it's me. In the past 10 years, I'm working in the international arena for climate change and sustainable development issues. So before the current position, I was the Deputy Director for Adaptation Center. I coordinate with 21 member economies and taking charge for the impact extreme weather or climate change something. And so in 2016, I was elected as the General Secretary of International Forum for Meteorological Society. Okay, we have 60 countries have the meteorological societies. So they will have federal, and I was elected as the General Secretary, and then now it's the Treasurer. So everybody thought I'm the meteorologist, but I'm not. Okay. Well, actually, my background is politics or political science. So in the past 10 years, I took my background, but I jumped into this international arena, and I work with 90% are meteorologists or hydrologists. Actually, I work with them and try to define what kind of problem or what kind of future trend we face and what kind of solution we can provide. Okay, so this is the federal meeting for IFMS. So a few days ago, I worked with some colleagues, including Professor Lo here, and we had a inoculation for Taiwan Climate Service Alliance in Central Weather Bureau. Anybody here was in the event? No? Okay. So basically, I think for climate services, one of the main concept or topic you will study in IPCS. And a few days ago, we worked with a lot of partners to organize an alliance called Taiwan Climate Service Alliance. And the purpose is to launch a platform for different partners, including official agencies, including some research institute or universities, and also the most important part, the private sectors, to work together and to try to make the climate service push forward, and also, if it's possible, to put more business opportunity into this climate services. Okay, so you can see all the participants here, they are the head of research institute or the enterprise. Okay, why do we have this? And I host a session for regular and exchange. So we discuss what kind of regulation currently influence the climate service development in Taiwan, and also what kind of regulation or law or act which need to change. For instance, some like certification, or some like the bottom line between public and private. Yeah, what kind of role the public service should do, and what we should release that to the private sectors, and then put more opportunities for business development. Okay. So why we do this? Why we do this? I think for climate service, anybody knows this picture before? No? Okay. The climate service is we identify, use the climate information in decision making. Okay. And for WMO, they released this framework called Global Framework for Climate Services, GFCS, in 2009. And in 2009, they released this framework and then need to strengthen 5 different priorities. The first one is agriculture and food security. And second one is disaster. I think all of you may know that climate extreme cause a lot of impact and also casualties, so they need to focus on that. And energy, all the renewable energy are from the natural resources, including solar, wind, and health. Yeah, for instance, the climate change caused the impact for disease distribution, so we need to know better, know some details. And also for the water. Yeah, water distribution are not even, so we have to study more. But did you notice mainstream? We use that in the past studies already. Yeah, we know what kind of phenomenon in, like for instance, if you study meteorology, you want to know, okay, what's the phenomenon and cause the precipitation and how much rainfall we got, so then we have flooding and we set some like red or yellow line to evacuate or something. But what is mainstreaming? Mainstreaming means we put this concept into every second, every decision-making process. For instance, for Taiwan, a lot of very good government officials. Actually, Taiwan do the disaster reduction work quite good. But for them, sometimes, I had the opportunity to review the proposal, and I noticed that, for instance, they set up very good public construction, and they set up the historical record, and to say, okay, for our future plan, we need to concern about like extreme weather, the historical record for precipitation here, or the flooding record here. So we need to build up better construction or better concrete or something like that. But if you notice the proposal, and you will know if they concern the climate information not only in the past, but also concern in the future projection for future challenges. And you will discover sometimes they didn't put awareness in future risks. Okay. So if you notice that, if every different proposals, we put the mainstream concept into that, the result could be different. Okay. So that's the concept for WMO. They released this global framework for climate services in 2009. And they would like to bring awareness to every different decision makers. Here, for instance, government, private sectors, research, or different principles. When you concern your current project, when you concern your future projects, you need to put the climate information in mainstreaming concept. And then, to make your decision to project the future risk, maybe for the short term like monthly, or in the long run yearly, or maybe in decades. But for that, we cannot put a lot of resources in one time. So we need this observation data, keep monitoring the data information. But also we need to put more modeling or with some prediction model improvement at the same time. And doing that, to put this schedule modeling through, not only one time, but also put that step by step, and use a very good information system as an interface. And put that into these different users, and to let them know what kind of information they could use, and if they could not accept in current stage, what kind of methodology can help them. So to inject all this system, it will not happen automatically. They need capacity building. The capacity building means not only improve the system, but also improve the awareness for different users. Okay. So I know that a lot of audience here maybe think about, okay, it's a quite broad and not very clear concept. So how to do that? So in the past few years, we think about how to bring this climate service concept into different stakeholders and also different principles. And I left the Adaptation Center in 2015, and we established ICDI. And 2015 is a year that, for people know, there's a very big event called Paris Agreement, COP21. But if you think the whole concept, the more broad or comprehensive concept for climate change or sustainable development in 2015. Actually, the main theme of 2015 of UN is not climate change. The main theme of 2015 called SDG. So in December, the UN have their conference for climate change in Paris. So they passed the Paris Agreement. But in fact, in September, they have the SDG high-level meeting in New York. And they released 17 SDGs. So climate change is one of that. It's only one of that. But also, if you look forward, in March in that year, 2015, the UN also released the Sendai framework as the assessment framework for disaster reduction, and also how to evaluate the impact for different scale disaster or climate change. Okay. So after that, we established the ICDI, International Climate Development Institute. And we use this SDG 13 as a main approach. And we treat the SDG goals like metrics. For instance, if you look at SDG 13 to SDG 1, that's what is SDG 1, poverty, for the vulnerable people, the people who suffer the most. But during the disaster or during the climate change, what would be the main impact for them? Or SDG 2, zero hunger or food security. During this climate change impacts, what kind of food security issue would be happened, and also how to solve it, agricultural or food security issue. SDG 3, health. So we use this as a matrix and to combine with different SDGs and try to provide different solutions. So here is the high-level meeting in UN, and in the past 3 years, I participate the high-level meeting in UN headquarters for SDGs. And not this year. This year we have COVID-19, so all the meetings come virtual. But in the last 3 years, I participate. It's very nice to have the dialogue between different UN agencies and also INGOs. So I have the opportunity to talk with them and to bring different ideas for each other. And for the Paris Agreement, we know that in this Paris Agreement, there are some very important concepts released. The first one is carbon pricing. So the carbon pricing means we calculate the carbon price for the impact of the carbon emission, and then factor into our financial capitalism. And then, for instance, in different countries like France or Japan or Canada or even Singapore, they have already adopted this carbon pricing policy. And in Taiwan, the end of this year, we are going to release our carbon pricing policies. So for 1 ton, the carbon would be 100 Taiwanese dollars. And they will change the cost for industrial and also the business sectors. And the second one is energy transition. So I think you may know that for energy transition, we need to put more carbon reduction into this energy transition policy. So renewable energy, 100 renewable energy was brought in this Paris Agreement. So I had some opportunities to meet some people, and yeah, here, anyone here knows who is this lady? Looks familiar. Okay, her name is Earl Brolin, and her famous book called Our Common Future. Oh. Okay, so she was the one who identified the definition for sustainable development. Okay, so our development cannot harm the light for the next generation. Okay, so in the past few years, actually she's quite nice to Taiwan. Yeah, she was the first winner for Trump Prize for sustainable development. So I had opportunity to meet her a few times. And here is the former Secretary General of UN, Mr. Matthew, and I had a chance to have dinner with him. I sit next to his table. So in Paris Agreement, we know that the cities and the subnational authorities are identified as the next step for implementation for carbon emission. So since 2015, you will see a lot of different initiatives for cities and urban transitions. And surely they have the fossil fuel subsidy reform and IPCC special report for SR15, something like that. So we know that for different international organizations or the UN mapping, they launched this SDG framework for the Paris Agreement or this UNDR in the past 4 years, I brought my colleagues to UNDR. We had internal training, so everyone in our institution, we had the UN certificate for disaster reduction, and we provide a training course for instance, the ICDI or different countries. They have this training course for disaster reduction, and we help them to identify what kind of methodology they can use. Okay. So, to integrate, the topic today, they asked me to present how to integrate this different concept. As I mentioned, ICDI, when we established ICDI, we use this SDG 16 to see as an approach to see different SDG goals and to identify what kind of methodology or what kind of solution we can provide. Okay. So when we established ICDI in 2015, we identified the climate services actually is our core. Why? When we face this changing world, when we face climate change, we need to identify what kind of situation and then gradually to provide the solutions. Yeah, because we cannot provide the solutions at one time. Okay, so gradually. So climate services is very important and key issue that for every decision maker to take into account. Okay. In short term, you have our meteorologist is talking about the short-term forecast for the colleagues. Okay. Or seasonal, or yearly, or decades. Or some people talking about the projection for the end of this century. Okay. So it's gradually. Okay, we have to put this kind of services into our decision-making process. And it will not happen automatically. So we need capacity building for every partner. So in the past few years, we work with a lot of different partners. Here is the Camyale International. Camyale International is the focal point for INGO in the UN for negotiation. And we are the only one member counterpart in Taiwan. And ICDI is the focal point for local government. As I mentioned, in Paris Agreement, they identify cities and subnational authorities are the next step. And we also know that for climate change, although it is a global issue, however, every cities, every different regions have their own problem. So we have to identify their own problem and also the risk. Help them. Okay. So for cities, not only ICDI, but also CityNet. CityNet is the agencies established by UN Habitat. Habitat is the special agency for urban issues, and also UNSCAP, and also WICO. I'll talk about that. So for cities, and also the juries, which is the first climate service national agency in the world. They established in 2009, so we had MOU with them. Yeah, in the past few years, we worked with them, have some like workshop or capacity building events in Taiwan. And okay, WICO. I'm talking about WICO. You will see that a lot of projects we need to put the climate services concept into decision-making process, and also help the capacity building with different partners. And there's a very important and interesting experience that a few years ago, there's a very big event called Smart City Expo in Taipei. And every March they have a very big event, invite city mayors to come to Taipei. For instance, last year we have 128 cities come to Taipei. Okay, mayor or the representative of mayors. And 4 years ago, they invited me to as their advisor and to provide some suggestion for them because they're doing smart city programs. And you know that all the smart city programs, they need sensors, they need data. Okay. They need a lot of data to use and to help the decision maker or the mayors to provide better policies for the citizens. So they invite me as an advisor. But I told them for their project, surely they identified a lot of very good advanced technology. But when they work on smart city projects, they forgot the main goal of smart city projects is not to show or to perform the good technology. The purpose should be bring the good governance into cities, into citizens. Okay. So the main goal should use this smart city projects to help the city mayors or decision makers to bring the city more sustainable. Okay. So since then, 4 years ago, we helped them to identify the smart and sustainable city as a goal. And we provide the smart solutions as a platform to inject this kind of services and capacity building program. So therefore, WeGo, which is established by ITU, the International Telecom Union, and they provide the e-governance since 20 years ago, become our partner. Okay. So in the past few years, I worked with different partners, and also we have some very good projects I will introduce that later. And also since 2018, we have some internship programs. So Stanford is our first partner for internship program. Last 2 years, every year they send students to ICDI to participate in our programs and also co-work with them. And also, surely they provide flight and accommodation fee. So after that, a lot of different international universities from Germany, from Spain, they also have the internship program with us. So since this year, actually, IPCS has the internship program with ICDI. So I welcome all of you can apply for next semester. And this year, 2020, we are very honored to be awarded for the Bellman Forum. I don't know if you know the Bellman Forum. It's like Earth Science Nobel Prize. So every country they could apply for that, but every year they only choose like one winner in one country. So this year we have the honor to be awarded with some partners. Yeah, we have 10 partners in different countries, and then we awarded in this year. And the main thing for the research program is climate change impact in public health. And the latest program for us is we now cooperate with ECCT, the European Chamber for the Commerce in Taiwan. And we will put more initiative in business sectors. Okay, so for the program, if you know that, a lot of programs rely on the government resources. It could be like only one shot. After the government funding finished, the program will be dead. However, if you put more business opportunities or you create an environment for business, then they will turn on to have more business model and also to make the whole concept in reality. So that's why in these 2 years, we have more opportunity to cooperate with some business sectors, but also, as I mentioned last week, we work with different partners in Taiwan to create Taiwan Climate Service Alliance for business. Okay, so every project in ICDI, we not only provide the concept, but also we provide a showcase for them. Yeah, because a lot of NGOs, they only provide concept. They say, okay, you know, for instance, nuclear is evil. So everybody could not, you know, just use nuclear anymore. But they didn't provide solutions. They just ask you to ban the policy or something like that. Okay. So this is one case. But a lot of NGOs, they are very good in initiative. But for them, they say they are not responsible for providing solutions. But for me, I think we have responsibility when you say something, when you say this concept is very important, and we need to demonstrate this could be work. Okay, so for instance, for climate services, they could apply to different sectors, different principles. For buildings, we know that if we would like to build up a great building, to save the energy, to adapt the whole natural environment, the solar or the sunlight could, save the light energy, and we can use the natural wind, so we don't turn on the condition like this, something like that. However, we need the data. We need to know all the data of this environment. And if you go in more deeper, you can calculate how many energy you can save if you construct differently. But also they need data. So in the building construction, in the last 20 years, they developed a tool called Building Information Model, local BIM. You can simulate the building before you really construct that. However, they still need data. So 4 years ago, ICDI worked with Central Weather Bureau and also Delta Electronic Foundation, and also the architecture building center in Interior Ministry. We established the platform for Green BIM. We release the data in different city and county, including the island component. We use the Central Weather's data, Central Weather Bureau's data, adapt into, for the last 20 years, adapt into 8,760 hours data, very detailed. And for the designers, they can use this data to simulate if they construct a building here, turn different angle, or use different material, or different glasses, how thick, how thin, and what would be the difference for energy consumption in this building. So for this part, in the very beginning, you can use this data to simulate and also to provide a very good or role model for ultimate energy saving in this building. But surely, if you have these ideas to say, okay, I need the building like, like shape like a heart or something, that's different. But at least you can provide an ultimate design. Okay. And then, not only for the construction like this part, design part, the energy operation actually is when you after your contract. The energy is using in this operational process. So we provide also the attribute data for air condition energy consumption, and also the forecast information for the next 3 days, and also the solar track in this platform. So you can calculate what kind of angle the solar can, the sunlight can put into this building. And as I mentioned, for this energy saving, it's in an operational process. So last year we had this experiment with the National Ocean Technology Museum in Kung-Yueh. And to say, if we use the forecast to change the air condition open time, how many energy saving we can use? They have the 500 tons air conditioning tube and one 200 ton air conditioner. And they use our forecast data and they also have 11 sensors in this museum. So our researchers are using the data and to provide the automatic simulation for this museum and to help them to identify how can be the museum to save the energy, to compare the usual time when they use their air conditioning. So the finding is in summertime. Last summer was very hot, and also they extend their opening time until 8 o'clock in the evening. But for their electricity fee, because they have a certain fee if you pass the or over the limitation, you'll be higher. So they use our methodology to change the opening time for the air condition, and they save 20% electricity fee during the summer. And after that, in the autumn time, because for autumn time you can open only maybe the 200 ton air conditioner. So in the summer, in the autumn time, they use our methodology and to save the energy, the electricity fee for 30%. Okay. So this demo, this project demos when we use the client service in into the building construction. Actually, we had an expert panel with some very big companies. They said they use our data and surely it's more accuracy, but also they use this to demo different design for like different shape of the building or different angle, turn the different angle for the building. The energy could be quite different. But also, when we use this kind of service into the operational model, the energy saving could be 20% or 30% potential when you really into operation. Okay. So, as I mentioned, for the capacity building part, this whole framework not only climate change or sustainable development will not happen automatically. We need to bring the capacity building for different stakeholders. Okay. So in the last few years, we work with different stakeholders, different partners, but also we would like to promote a concept for community-based adaptation. What is community-based adaptation? Okay. You may know for the adaptation part. What is adaptation? Anyone? What is adaptation? Climate change adaptation.
The ability of a city or a group of people to adjust the negative effects of climate change and be able to like survive on warnings.
Okay. But how to bring the adaptation measurement? How to develop it?
I guess like after a disaster, you can identify the weaknesses that or like the problem areas that were identified during a disaster and try and strengthen those to build resilience.
Okay. Yes. Exactly. But you know, when I work in APAC, we bring the experts like hydrologists or meteorologists or some like social scientists or different background experts to one place, to one city, and to help them to define the weakness or vulnerability and to say, okay, what kind of project or construction you need for the next few years and with the frequency of flooding, so you need to bring some like trench or walls or something like that, or to change the urban planning, something like that. Okay. So that's the traditional way we do that. We invite different experts to meet together. Okay. However, sometimes we forgot to listen to who live there longer. Yeah, the people who live there like for like 6th generation, 5th generation for 100 years, or at least the people who live there all his life, maybe 50 years, 70 years, something like that. So they know the place better. Okay. So in the past few years, I think you may know that we, the whole international communities, will provide or promote a concept called stakeholder engagement. Why we need stakeholder engagement? We need someone who lives there and involved in this process. Okay, so for instance, they combine the traditional knowledge there. Now we have scientific knowledge, we have experts but we also need to listen to the people who live there. They know the place since his childhood. And with these people to face the new dynamic challenges. And also when they involved, they will think that's their own thing. That's very important because for disaster or the impact when it happened, you cannot rely on the cities or the governments to rescue you. The people who live there need to rescue themselves in the very beginning, and then wait for the next step. Maybe the others should help them. Okay. So they have to help themselves first. Okay. So this part is very important that in the past few years, you will see a lot of NGOs that promote CDA, community-based adaptation. They create a dialogue between the experts and also the local. However, not only listen to the local also needs the capacity. Okay. And also why? Because here is the gender balance. So mentoring actually not only in climate service, but also in gender. Yeah, so you will see a lot of gender mentoring. And in this process, men or women need to involved in this process to solve their own problem, especially for women. Why? Well, when we have the international meetings for climate change, women or gender equality is a very important key issue in the process. Why? Because in the most of the time, when people go out to work, actually, ladies or the women who involve and take care of the vulnerability, for instance, elderly or the children in their home. If they have knowledge or capacity building, they could save more lives. Okay. And also, they need to prioritize what the community can do. So adaptation has different scales, from the local scale to the central scale. It's not just one thumb, one shot, and you say, okay, here is the adaptation policy, so everybody just they have different scales. Okay. So in the past few years, in this capacity building program, we also provide this program called SDG 13 to SDG 1. And we have this program with Oxfam, Hong Kong. Oxfam is INGO established in UK, and they have international branches. So we work with Oxfam Hong Kong to identify what is the most vulnerable groups when they facing this climate change risk, and how can we help them for poor or social justice perspective, what they need, and how to bring the gaps and challenges to help them. So we had different projects. In the very first beginning, we had research projects to identify what is the vulnerability for this SDG 1 groups. And we know that they have different levels and four different weaknesses. The first one is information. The most vulnerable groups during the climate change issues, they are lack of information. They don't know what the risk they need to face. And they don't know the situation has come. And the second part is resources. Even they know, okay, there's a risk for them, but they don't have resources to face or to deal with. And the third one is awareness. Even they know the information, someone tells them, okay, you're going to face the challenges. However, they don't have awareness. So when they don't have awareness, they don't take action. And if you don't take action, it will not happen. And the fourth one, the health condition. Even they have information, someone tells them, they have some little resources, and they know it's important, they have awareness. But sometimes, the most vulnerable groups, they don't have very good health conditions. They are disabled, or sometimes they are slow, elderly. So they cannot respond to this very quickly. Okay, so in the first year research outcome, we identified the most vulnerable groups. They have these 4 weaknesses, and we need to help them. So the second year, ICDI and Oxfam Hong Kong, we identify social workers or local NGOs are integrated. And we need to train local people and also who work with them, especially the social workers and also the local NGOs. So we use this to help them. Yeah, here is the UNDR framework. We have, as I mentioned, we have the UNDR training for every ICDI stuff. So we use this framework to help the local people to identify their risks. For instance, what is the natural resources in this community? They have river, they have woods, they have different natural resources they can use or protect them. And do they have physical means, man-made construction, very good road condition or bridge or something, shelter, something like that. And for human means what kind of human resources in the community. So they are high salary or low salary, or the average age high or something like that. And financial, do they have very good financial resources? Insurance, economy, or the other like grants from central or local government. And the most important part actually is social. The social is, do they have very good network in the local? When something happens, they can communicate and help themselves in the local. So for instance, in some community they have volunteers groups to take care of the disabled or the most vulnerable people in the first stage. Or some network to communicate with different regions nearby, something like that. So after they identify their conditions, they can use this metrics to identify what kind of objectives they could improve to provide the operation of policy for themselves and set up the action and how to measure the action is work, the indicators and time frame. 2 years target, 4 years target, how to review. For instance, like change the disaster map every 3 years, something like that. And who should be responsible for that or where's the money from, something like that. Okay, So in the past few years, as I mentioned, I worked with Oxfam, and then we have 2 projects for identifying the vulnerable groups and also to provide the training for social workers. And since that last year, we go deeper to work with China city government. Because China city government asked me, okay, we have very good projects for the last 2 years, and what will be the next? They have the capacity, they have the knowledge, they know they are going to face the climate change challenges for themselves. What will be the next? So the last year, the 3rd year, I worked with China city government to provide the participatory budgeting program for them. Because I tell the China city government, if they have the knowledge and capacity, we should provide little resources, let them decide their own legislation policy and implement. And they can see or treat the climate change risk as their own possibility. They could change that. Okay, so last year, I had some workshop in the very rural area. You can see most of them actually are quite yearly age. So the most challenging for me is I need to use their own language to let them know what is climate change and what would be the challenge for them. So I use their own language. I use Taiwanese to provide a whole speech for them for 2 hours. Well, it's harder than I use English. Yeah. So I use Taiwanese to explain what is climate change. If you know how hard is that. And to use Taiwanese language to explain what's the terminology for the participation, something like that. And then use the metrics here to help them to identify their own adaptation policies. And they have iVoting. And then they got very, very hard competition, and the winner, actually they just win compared to the 2nd place. They just win 1 column. Okay. So it's very challenging. But after that, they got 10,000 US dollars. Well, it's not much, but they got little resources and to take care of their own community. So that's very important. And then they can know that for their own community, they need to take care from now and until the next generation. Okay. So for that, it's very important from their viewpoint. Okay. Their priority, actually, when we have the dialogue between experts and also the local community, you will define the priority between them and also the experts are quite different. So from their own viewpoint, and also they will tell you, you concerned about 30 years later, here will be like flood or something like that. But for me, I'm old, and I'm taking care of my grandson. And I take care about maybe next 3 years. What kind of project we could do now and for our grandson. He will stay here for the next 30 years. So we took that change gradually, not just concerned about 30 years later at one time. And also use their own language. So that's why we train the local people, train the social workers. Because you will define sometimes very interesting. The same language is the same words you said, and the local people sometimes respond not very clear, but the same words, the social workers, live with them and say again. And the elder people respond, oh yes, I understand. Okay. So sometimes this mediators and translators are very important. And also discussed by their own. It's very important. So they will treat the policies their own. And the last part, resources. Okay. So not only give them knowledge, but also if you help them provide little resources, or things from this year, because we also help them to identify the platform to have matchmaking with different local enterprise. So they will identify the resources by their own, to have some local enterprise to support. For that part, the capacity could be from the local, and in the long run, they can help and also rescue themselves. Okay. So last part for that is smart city governance. As I mentioned, a local issue is very key and also very important. We identify the climate change risk, but also every risk is localized. Okay, so local is very important. So this part is the SDG 13 to SDG 11. And we know that 4 years ago, as I mentioned, when they talked to me, I say, okay, sure, I can help you to identify some, like how to use the meteorology information well, something like that. But you can see when we have the opportunity to meet the other countries, for instance, this is the bilateral meeting with Taiwan and Finland last year. I was invited to talk about the climate and also sustainable issues. We visited the headquarters of Nokia. So as a Nokia fan, well, it was my dream come true. Well, although I'm quite sad when the cell phone was not able to reproduce. But anyway, you can see Nokia is turning into a smart city company. So this street light, they have different sensors in the light, and you will see the climate data is essential for that. Temperature or any other data. And they use this data to prepare the whole city as an ecosystem, and to how to create the more better governance in the city scale. And here is another bilateral meeting with Sweden. So here is the headquarters of Ericsson. And you will see the whole project provided by Ericsson. They use smart cities or different instruments when they collecting the data. The goal is to achieve the better governance and also how to identify, to link with SDGs, different indicators, something like that. So since that, ICDI, we work with our partners, such as Italy or the other city organizations. We try to collect the different city examples around the world to provide how to using these ICT tools to provide better governance. And we know that for ICT tools, actually it's not only happened since 10 years ago, since smart city concepts happened. you know that for ICT tools, we have used that for e-governance since 1990. However, when we use these ICT tools to help us for city government, we need to know for these different cities, if we can have the peer learning or peer study through this city platform, different cities could learn from each other, and also we can know how to use this smart program to solve the problem for climate change or disaster reduction or something like that. Okay, so since last year we provided a global smart solution report, and you can download that. So every year we launch this report initially in the COP meeting. And not only that, we also have the Smart City Forum every year. So this year we have 4 international organizations to co-organize with us. And you can see Professor Lin here. Yeah. Okay. Alright. So here is the panel for PPP, and we invite the speakers to provide how to bring the business opportunities into this central city. Okay. So before I end up this presentation, the last part for you is the green or climate finance. Well, 4 years ago I was invited to EBRD as the CSO representative in the board meeting, and since then it's very important that I bring different concepts into EBRD projects. Well, it's very interesting meeting because for the other invited experts, well, we have like 10 around the world. The other care about the transparency movement. So, for instance, when EBRD president, here is the EBRD president, they have their report, and the other expert will say, okay, for the president of Kazakhstan, he is like corruption or something. Why do you borrow the money for Kazakhstan or the other countries? They have like very transparent program. Why do you give them so much money somewhere? So I will be the only one to provide climate advice for them. But anyway, since then, you will see a lot of climate finance initiative in some international organizations. So every money when the bank borrow or invest, they will count the carbon footprint or what kind of the adaptation program or function for this investment. So you will see more, and you will probably know that they launched TCFD since this year. Okay. And circular economy is also one of the economy approaches for that. So I will end up my presentation here. In the past 4 years, we worked with different partners and to identify how to use climate services and capacity building programs together and use this smart solution as platform and to work with different partners around the world. And I hope for all students here, you will know, you will have your expertise after graduate and how to identify the questions and find better solutions. And the discipline is unlimited. As I mentioned, I work as a public policy, and now I've jumped into meteorologist working group. And every solutions should be localized, and also your career should be international. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. And
ICDI is very important as we actually had a different scholars seminars, but for Monday one will be more related to the industry. And the climate service industry is one of our core ideas for the IPCS. So that is the reason we invite someone like you and other practitioners in the different think tanks and the different industry, different companies, all related to the climate service industry. To give a speech to the students, and then we can learn more from each other. That's like and that is the reason we invite the camp. This is our pioneer, the first climate service industry lecture series. You are the number one. You are the first one. That's very good. We can have you be here to have the more conversation. So, anyone has any questions? Please. Or you have any climate problems around in your communities, and you think about you can looking for some solutions, and then the reader you are asking any questions. Lloyd, you are here, please. Okay.
Actually, I have one question, but you already said that the question is about the difficulties to communicate with the locals or international groups of the country. Yeah, but you already said that. So
Okay. Any other issues? Please.
We share the difficult point of teach elder people what is climate change and adaptation. And that's our program start to put the resource on it. And because my parents are also living in rural area and they join many free DIY activities in their communities, but I have never heard and learned new knowledge such as climate change and sustainability. So the kind of case for me is very cool, and maybe it could be copied to other countries in the future.
Okay, good.
Well, the most difficulty for the elderly people to communicate with them is patience. You need to put a lot of efforts and to explain one word or one concept. So you have to be a very good storyteller. Actually, how to tell a story and bring the concept clear is very important. For instance, well, if 我不知道这边有人可以这个可以上网吗？你帮我找那个 IPCC 做了一个那个减灾的那个3个平台。I checked that as an example. But IPCC 减灾有3个。disaster reduction 它有一个3个disaster 那底下这个好像是这个对 yes okay well is anyone here have seen this picture before? Yes. Yeah. Okay. So here is very clear concept. We have hazard, weather events or something like that, and we have exposure, and if your vulnerability is high, so you will have risk. Okay. How could you explain this to elderly people? How? If you are the storyteller. Okay. So if you see, well, it's very scientific, graphic, and very difficult to explain. I use a very simple and everybody know the story. 3 pigs. You know 3 pigs story, right? Okay. So the first pig, he go outside to build up his own house. and the big bad wolf go to his house and blow his house away. Okay. So the first pig, he built up his house very near. Okay, very near. So the big bad wolf actually is like a hazard, like a typhoon. When typhoon comes, if you build up your house very near, your exposure is very high. And also, you build up your house with straw. Can straw protect you? No. So your straw means your vulnerability is very high. So in this story, the first pig cannot protect himself. Then the second pig go further. So the big bad wolf came further to find him. And also he built up the house by wood. So the big bad wolf used more effort to blow his house away and feel very hot. But still, the big bad wolf destroyed the house. And then the three pigs ran into the third house. Okay, so the third house goes further. The big bad wolf run very hard, like 10 miles away, and then very hard to find the house. Okay, the exposure here. And then they build the house by bricks. Okay, so the big bad wolf cannot destroy, cannot blow the house away. Okay, so they protect themselves. Okay, so if the big bad wolf or the weather events run into your track, the weather events the humankind cannot control. We cannot control the clouds part, but we can control the exposure and vulnerability. So if you live on the track every day, the big bad wolf goes on, you will meet the big bad wolf more frequently. But if you hide after that, maybe you live on the second row or something further, the big bad wolf cannot find you very easily. Okay, so to reduce your exposure is the first part. And the second part is also to reduce your vulnerability. So don't use straw to build up your house. You can have more concrete or better system for your home construction or your plan, something like that. Okay. So for that, use this big bad wolf. Actually, the elderly people know, okay, so the big bad wolf we cannot control, but we can control the exposure. Okay, we know something somewhere are dangerous. We avoid for that, and also we we put our effort to reduce our vulnerability, more resilient. Okay. So our system is more better or more resilient, and we can protect ourselves. Something like that. Okay.
Yeah. Mike, any other questions, please?
Yes.
Please.
We all know the role, like in your presentation, which was very international and I enjoyed a lot. We all know the role of the global north and how Taiwan bilaterally talks to different countries and also different industries. But can you share with us the role of the global south, because they are very much vulnerable, but can you share with us the role of how the global south can also be part of the solution?
The global south. Developing countries.
Yeah, sure. Well, in the past 10 years, actually, when I worked in APEC, right? Okay. Well, when I worked in APEC, actually, half of them are more developing countries. Yeah. Okay. Or we call eligible countries because well, the rich countries cannot get the grant from FX, but the eligible countries are more acceptable for that. Okay. So I work with them, and also we help them to provide capacity building programs in like Philippines, Vietnam, or the other countries. So I think for developing countries, they are very important that we see why we call ICDI International Climate Development Institute. Some people see climate issue as environmental issue. Okay, so when you see climate issue as environmental issue, sometimes the economic development and the environmental protection are against each other. But we see climate issue as development issue. Okay, because the current situation, the current problem for climate is caused by development. Since industrial revolution, something like that, and then global warming, right? So when we see this climate issue as development issue, we need to provide a better solution for that, and then it could be replaced. And in fact, for the global south, they're facing the development issue and the climate issue together. Because for the rich countries, we know that if they're facing the challenges, maybe they use some financial resources or they have more resources to adapt to that. But for the developing countries, especially for the small island countries, they don't have the resources. But for them, they also need development. So if we could provide some very good development solutions, we solve the climate issue and also the development issue together. That would be the very good and main approaches for them. So that's why the climate finance, as I mentioned, the last part, is very important because now we calculate every money we spend, what is the carbon emission for that. We need to check that come to zero until 2050. That's our main goal. But also, when we have this money spent, what kind of adaptation function for this? Maybe we provide a new, like as I mentioned, ICT tools, provide them and they can could be the new solution for that. Something like that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Please. I'm interested in your training on finance.
Okay.
And you improve people's knowledge and capacity and this is the small scale. My question is, maybe this is not a thing in some society, people want. Thank you. People build their capacity and also knowledge to maximize their own individual benefits. So my question is whether or not you include some education practice to improve people's moral aspect. This is my question. Do you understand? I mean, if you have more knowledge and capacity, you can use it for collective adaptation, but you can use it for your own individual purpose. For example, buying some real estate that will insulate yourself from outside. So different countries have different kind of concept of society. So do you have maybe your case will not be like this, but do you have such training to improve people's collective action or moral aspect?
Collective action and individual interest?
yes, people can use their knowledge to maximize their individual interests, but for better adaptation, people should use their knowledge for collective benefits, right? Do you have such kind of training to improve social cohesivity?
Okay. Well, let me introduce our the program. Well, we have a 1 year program for this implementation, and the first part is we provide the knowledge training for the people. So everyone learns what is climate change, what is the participatory budgeting, and what is the importance for them to decide their own policy, something like that. Okay. And then we have this roundtable. Roundtable, in the one roundtable, we have like 10 people, and the local residents sit together, and the city governors, central governors. So in one roundtable, actually we have multi-level different stakeholders. So they discuss this together. So when the local residents provide some ideas, okay, I think something is very important. Actually, the other, like local officials or the central officials here, they can provide some feedback in minutes, you know. So let them know, okay, your idea could be implemented or not.
Do you see some conflict between those?
Conflict. Very little, I should say, because when we invite people, well, this is something I didn't say here. When we invite people, you know, we have like official letter to invite all the people. So anyone willing to come, you can come. So you will see. People sit here, actually, they have very high intention to do something successful. But we know that for some like rural area and the leader of the rural, they are not interested in this kind of project. You know, and even you have the official letter to invite him, he will not respond. So the local leaders, actually, well, for this part means if the local leaders are interested in this part, it could be success. Yeah, it could be successful. But if the local leaders or the local residents who are not interested in participation, maybe we need to find another one. But, well, I don't like to say that, but we know some disasters are the better way that God tell them to do. For instance, you know, in the past 20 years, the government put a lot of resources to rescue some people in some rural area, in Bangkok, in somewhere, and every time when we see typhoon comes, they are not evacuated. But after Typhoon Morocco, some were just evacuated automatically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, there is some disaster, really people die in that terrible typhoon disaster. When people understand the evacuation is so important, everyone will automatically join the evacuation process.
Yeah, but surely we need to find better way to let them know. Yeah.
In that sense. But not at that.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Please, Sophia. We can collect some questions, okay, and then we save the time. So yeah, first.
Okay. So aside from the internships that you have at ICDI, are there like what sort of hiring positions are there in the organization? Are Are there different ways that people can work for this?
Yeah.
They are looking for the job.
Okay. Well, actually, ICDI, we just announced our job application a few days ago. So if you are interested, yeah, we have some full-time job open now. Yeah. But for internship, every intern they could participate our programs directly. Yeah, we treat them as one of the junior researchers here. Yeah, so they involved.
Okay. Is answering your question already? Sure. Anyone today? This gentleman is doing something about the ocean.
Okay.
And he works in the ocean institute as well.
Actually, my question is about the community-based adaptation things. Because right now, the stakeholder participation is very, I think, we consider this in different part of the world to try to find solutions for the environmental problems. But my question is, every time we think that it is important to combine the traditional knowledge into our adaptation process or our adaptation strategies. For instance, we also try to ask the old fishermen about the resources there and how they managed that before. But for the situation right now, that is different from before. And for the climate change issues, that is a new problem for us. And so, is there any experience in your project that you find some way to incorporate the traditional knowledge into your adaptation strategy, or because sometimes we try to conduct this community-based things into our problem-solving process. I always feel that we just listen their opinions, but their opinion just opinions, and we do not incorporate into our strategies. I think a lot of times in every situation. So I'm wondering that if you have ever used their traditional knowledge into the adaptation strategies.
Okay. Well, as I respond to the lady here, patient. Quite similar situation when we visit the rural area to have interview with the very elderly farmers there. They live there for like 70 years, 80 years, even 90 years. Yeah. So they have their own opinion. That's usual. But the problem is, after you spend like 2 hours have hot tea with them, when we visit the Tainan County and the rural area, they like to drink the traditional green tea. And you have 2 hours spent with him, and after that, and you just speak little, very little, but he talked a lot. But after that, maybe second time or third time, when you say something, he will try to listen to you and understand what you're talking about. So, it's very difficult to communicate with different groups, not only for the farmers, but also with different principles. When we do the cross-sectional researches, we know that, for meteorologists or for the other different study groups, when we say something, they will identify, that's different. So we need a lot of communication, maybe not only once, maybe twice, 3 times, maybe 10 times, something like that. So for the fishermen, I would say, actually for them, if they're talking about something changes, sometimes I would find opportunity to me is an opportunity. Okay, yeah, you say changes. So that's very important. What changes? Okay, so from my knowledge, that changes may caused by something else, and your expertise can come. Overwhelming, and let him know. Okay, you are not just listening. You are a big talker. Yeah. So sometimes we need patience, but if you find a chance, and you can be, like something to explain later, and maybe talk to him. A lot of expertise to prove his idea is true, and contract your counsels with him.
Okay. Good enough.
I think this is something that we try to convince them that the climate change is true. But my question is that, is there any chance that they can use their traditional knowledge to convince you that that is suitable for your adaptation strategy? I mean, have ever experienced this kind of situation?
Well, I think that's both ways. Sometimes their traditional knowledge is to approve. Our knowledge is true. Yeah, because we learn something theory, but they have practiced that for 50 years. They spend their whole life in visual, and they see something changes.
Yes, that is my question. Because they fish there for 50 years, and right now we talk to them that, oh, you cannot fish right now. But they said the fish is there. They just move around there. Maybe just move on 100 kilometers away from the traditional layer where they fish. So that is, I think that is the most difficult part for us to discuss this kind of question with the local people, because they just want to do that, and they know that it is something changed, but they say they can adapt that. By the way.
Well, so that's why I said I identify the climate issue as a development issue. Because if we are telling something they cannot do anymore after they do something 50 years later. So we need to provide a good solution and replace that. If you provide a solution and their economy development or the losses could be little, but they turn another new economy way or business model, they will follow you. Yeah, because if you just tell them something you cannot do, but you did not provide a solution for them. For them, they are killing themselves.
May I join the discussion? I think the point is that actually the local people are quite rational. So if we provide them not just only the discourse or arguments, but also the evidence. But the evidence at the local community level, which is people are living there, they are sensing through their body, everything, it's very local level. But the way we could provide them the data is quite regional, quite city scale, or even quite national scale. So that is something about the gap. The gap actually people try to understand the climate issues through their body and their local community just around their neighborhood. But the way we try to tell them is too far away. So I think the gap also related to the community capacity development. I think it is two. Number one is actually there is a gap about the data in terms of the time scale, also in terms of the spatial scale. And that would be the issue we need to go further. That is one of my comments. Maybe you can go your suggestions. The other one is actually everyone understand the climate. Everyone say it's cold, it's hot, everything. But there are actually, from my view, it's about the climate or weather literacy. Literacy we can translate it as 识读 or kind of the basic literacy. Everyone need to read. That is your literacy. But right now, it's not about you read Chinese, English. You have the basic understanding about climate, about weather. For example, maybe I asked everyone before, the percentage of the rainfall is different from the size of rainfall, the amount of rainfall. But if you see the 100%, there might be rain tomorrow, for example, right? And then 10%, will you bring the big umbrella when you see the 100% and the 10% you will bring the small umbrella? But it's different. But I mean the way of the literacy, a lot of the weather literacy or climate related literacy, just our daily life basis, may not be widely educated. So everyone maybe just read what is weather, how is climate in their 2 pages when they are undergraduate students, and then skip everything away. And then only see the newspaper forecaster 5 minutes before 8 o'clock, and then know nothing. So that is another way of the gap. So I see the 2 gaps. Number 1 is the data gap. The other one is the literacy gap. And how to balance and make this complemented together. Yeah.
Okay. Well, for the data or the other like knowledge gap or something, I think more education or more like as I mentioned, this kind of mediator to provide capacity building program is important. Okay. So sometimes, as I mentioned, the same language we speak or the social workers speak to them are quite different. Right? So some people live with them and say similar things to them. Sometimes they accept. Okay, so find someone to talk to them. That's very important. But also, for the second part, the climate change in this SDG goal, this is climate action. Remember, action. So sometimes they don't need to understand a lot of literacy. For them, they know something is true. For instance, global warming is true. So it will affect for their business impact, and for the fishery, maybe reduce in this area, something like that. They need to know very little things, but for themselves related. But the most important part is for action. When they understand something is true, as I mentioned, so they know, okay, it happened and it will impact for their fishery in this area, so their business will be impacted. So they know that is true, and they need to take action, or they would like to take action to protect their own business. Maybe not the same. For instance, they may be changed to another different business in this area. Not fishery again. Okay. So if they provide something like solutions or some different economy or business opportunity for them, and they're willing to change, I think our goal is not to educate everyone become a scientist. But if they understand something and change, that's more important.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes. Final one.
A question regarding smart cities before. I was wondering if there's tendencies every year about climate services, or is there, or how does it work exactly with regards to climate services that inside of smart cities or?
Well, smart city forums, we have the smart city forums every year. So mostly in March, the 3rd week of March. But this year, due to COVID-19, so the events happened in July and September. So you can Google that online. We have the real-time videos there. So the next year would be March 24th. But climate service is one of the main concepts. Yeah, because for instance, the main thing for smart city forum this year is low carbon economy. And my session for children is for PPP. So we invite people to explain. So during the presentation from the speakers, you can see, okay, how they use, for instance, there's a Saitama city from Japan. They use sensors in the cities to help them to identify the eco-mobility, to solve the problem for their city governance or something like that. So climate service actually is a concept. We promote that into all different decision-making process. Yeah. So every application could inject the climate service concept, and we would like to demonstrate different maybe opportunities for business sectors. When they develop the new business, they use the climate service concept. They solve the problem, but also they help the people transform the city.
But maybe just last question. Okay, after your question. I mean, when we say about the climate, sometimes we are referring to the carbon directly. But the people understand the climate, or because we are staying in the city, we know how hot of this temperature it is, and how big the rain than before. So there's a two kind of different sensing of the sense of the climate, and how to bring this gap together, because everyone understanding temperature is rising, and everyone understanding the carbon might be an issue, but they more like to have the solution how to lower the temperature around the community.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting and good question. Well, if you ask what is climate to meteorologist 那个大气系的，对吧？那大气系的同学，有人如果问你什么是气候 ，What is climate？
No。
需要懂，就是一般来说都是我们会讲一天一天，像这样下雨会讲天气，或今天很热什么天气。而如果是我们都在讲气候的话，通常要长时间来，有可能10年、20年的去这个地方的所有的天气均全部是一样的。
Okay. So actually, the same term in different principles in different places, they could be something different.
Yes.
So in fact, when we have this climate surveys, we launched the Taiwan Climate Service Alliance here. And actually, a lot of meteorologists, they have questions about the name. Because for them, if we're talking about climate, it doesn't mean weather.
The weather service, the climate service.
Yeah, they say, oh, you should put weather service and climate service together. But according to definition by WMO, well, because for WMO, they released this framework in 2009. I had the opportunity to participate. And the climate service means seamless from short term to long term. So this climate service means the whole
period, from very long term to a very short term.
Yeah.
But actually, if you Google that, in Chinese, 天气 is different from the 气候. That is in English as well. Weather is different from climate. It's also in Japan. Right. Yeah. But if you Google translate in Spanish or in Portuguese, I don't remember which one. That actually climate is the same. They are depending on the context. They are depending on the context. If you Google, let's say that is Spanish or the Portuguese, because I was one of the students from Latin America. I think he is from Portuguese speaking country, you can Google Translate. So actually in Chinese with so many terms, 天气 ，OK， 气候、大气 and the atmosphere science, and 天空 ，OK, the air. So that is some different term, and we use confusingly in the different way. That is the major reason.
Yeah. So for this, climate service. Climate service is definition by WMO, World Meteorological Organization. That's a special agency by UN. That means seamless. So from short-term forecast to long-term, maybe until the end of the century. So it's like seamless.
Okay. That you find something?
Oh, Spanish.
Huh?
Clima.
Spanish, right? Spanish the same term. So depending on your context. So actually the culture is so diversified. Okay. And it's true. So in Chinese, 气象 is meteorological. So it's kind of different term. 气象、大气、天气、气候.
Well, the last thing I think I would like to share to all of you, we're talking about different principles, different backgrounds, or different groups are very difficult to communicate. Okay. Well, I had a chance to participate in the UN conference every year, COP meeting. And I remember a few years ago when the current IPCC chair, Dr. Lee, was the new on board, the first press release meeting in the COP meeting, and we have like 100 participants in the room, and for I think all maybe 90% of them are the co-authors of IPCC, the different groups, and they have like Dr. Lee and the other group chair sitting there and answer question, talking about how AR6 will be released, what kind of framework further. And I remember there's a Canadian researcher, she said, I have to tell you, Dr. Lee, we released very good report before, but I have difficulty that for me, I'm the author of Working Group 2. Sometimes when I use the report from Working Group 1, I don't have opportunity to understand or to dialogue with the authors in Working Group 1. And it's very important for me to dialogue with that. So I cannot solve the problem. I have to read the report and ask, what is this? And to my colleagues in my own university. I think she's from Nigeria. So Dr. Lee apologized for that. Even the top scientists around the world, they have the similar questions. But after that, I think in SR 15, a special report 15 for 1.5, they have the first time different working group co-authors meeting together in Songdo to release the report. I think like a few years ago. Okay, so I think for that part, every groups, every researchers in the field, every world, in every corner in the world, need the same questions. So it's usual, but we need patience. If you're really interested in something, try more and try different ways to find your partners. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Otherwise, we say thank you again for coming. The climate service industry, we will invite different practitioners, think tank experts come over to our class, okay, and we'll let you know about the climate service maybe one of your job, and looking for the job offer, and then to share all of us, and then the internship we also very highlight as any possibility. Okay, we say thank you again for